story went upstairs. He's there now listening and looking at offers. The Minnesota Wild have thrown an offer on the table. Parise and his team now are taking a look at that. Wade Arnott is his agent. They're looking at that offer. The Pittsburgh Penguins have also been in contact with Parise. They're putting together a formal offer and a call from Sidney Crosby to kind of persuade Zach Parise that maybe Pittsburgh is the place to play. The Winnipeg Jets are making it really obvious. They're very interested. The Detroit Red Wings are gathering at the airport in full force. They're going to make their way here shortly. In many ways, James, it reminds me of the long list of ladies who were calling you and saying that they were going to ask for a prom date. It was that kind of situation where everybody kind of gathers and says, we want the one that wins James for the prom. It's that kind of format that's going on right here, right now. We sit and wait. The next up, we expect the Red Wings to come out here in full force. As soon as we get word from them, we'll try to grab Ken Holland and company as they make their way in and find out what they expect to pay, because the price tag could be heavy. The speculation is that they'll be looking for two $12 million signing bonuses. One that comes today, and then one in July 1st, exactly 1 year from today. So it is not going to be cheap, kind of like being a prom date for you, James.
Gino's used a lot of quality metaphors in his long career at TSN. Me and multiple girls to the prom, probably not his finest.
No.
This call thing, by the way, is the new thing, right? Gretzky and Coffey call for Schultz, and Crosby calls for Parise. If I ever go to free agency, would you call I don't think you'd call to convince me to stay, would you? That would be my fear.
Yeah, I don't have your number. You won't give it to me.
That's accurate. Obviously, we'll be following Parise and Suter closely throughout the day. It's amazing how similar these guys are as far as where they are in their careers and what they could do through teams. I believe we have a graphic that illustrates it. Both of them 27 years old. Of course, Parise, the left winger, Suter, the left defenseman, and both huge parts of their respective teams over the past few years in New Jersey and in Nashville. Both of these players, do they change? How dramatically do they change the teams that they sign with? Or if they both sign with one team, I suppose that's an obvious answer to that question.
Well, let's say if they sign separately, I'll take that. Suter makes, to me, the bigger impact because he can play 25, 26, 27 minutes a game. If you look at, of all the teams that are interested, and of course there are many, you know, Detroit's at the front of that list that has this such an obvious need for a defenseman where they lose half of their top four defense and they have to replace big minutes. I think Suter's appearance in Detroit, if that's where it all ended up, that would make the biggest impact. Parise's a forward. They play 18 to 21 minutes a night.
I know this. If Sidney Crosby is able to get Zach Parise to go to the Pittsburgh Penguins, and Evgeny Malkin and James Neal are on the second line, and those guys are on the first line, that's going to be a heck of an impact in the Eastern Conference, I'll tell you right now. That being said, Ray Sherrill's positioned himself perfectly by all the moves he made at the draft in terms of unloading on Zbigniew McCulloch, in terms of drafting players, the way they moved Jordan Staal. They were able to get Brandon Sutter. So you look at it, they're in a really good position, and if you get Sidney Crosby and Zach Parise on the same team, good luck trying to match up on that team.
I think that the things that these guys look for, they look for the ability to win. I don't think they're going any place that doesn't have the ability to win. So that really limits the field then. And I think the other team that you can look at is Chicago. Chicago might be a team that has the ability to win, certainly, but also you look at Taves being a line mate of Parise. There's some familiarity there. Suter that comes in. How can they get the money to do that? I think obviously they look at trading some of their big guys. Maybe they trade Kane. Maybe they trade Yarmelson and free up the space to add to their team.
What about the uniqueness of these two guys, though? I mean, their character's impeccable. The pedigree that they have is admirable.
Guy than Zach Parise.
These are two exceptional players that are available.
Professionalism personified. That's what they are.
There's some guys that couldn't handle going to Pittsburgh because they want to be the guy. There's some free agents that want to be the guy, but Parise, every time you talk to him, all he wants is rings. And so will that be a deciding factor in Pittsburgh? Detroit, of course, both pursuing both of those players. They already signed a goaltender today in Jonas Gustavsson. The monster goes to Detroit. He joins us on the line now. Jonas, happy to be a Red Wing?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's a great team, and with all their history, and they always have a good team. So I'm really happy to be a part of it. How
much interest was there out there? How many offers were you fielding?
I don't know. I just talked to my agent this morning and a couple hours ago, and I don't know. I think it was some interest, but as soon as I heard about Detroit, I mean, it was not not a tough choice to make to sign with them. So I'm just happy about that.
You had stretches of terrific play last year with Toronto. You had some frustrating stretches as well. Was one of the things you were really looking for was to play with a contending team? You faced an awful lot of rubber last year in Toronto. Was that one of your prerequisites, was to get to a contending team this year?
My goal was to come to a team where I feel like I can keep developing, and I feel like I still have a lot to learn in this league. So I wanted to go to a team that could give me that chance, and of course a good team is always the better, because you play hockey because you want to win, and the Detroit, they always have a great chance to do that. So that of course also helped to pick them. But my biggest point was that I wanted to keep developing, and I feel like I have a great chance to do that in Detroit.
Now that your time in Toronto is officially over, what would be your perhaps biggest disappointment of your time with the Leafs?
Well, obviously that would be not making the playoffs. As I said, you play hockey because you want to win, and we weren't good enough to go to the playoffs and compete there. So that would be the biggest disappointment for me. And but on the other hand, I feel like I had 3 good years with them. They took care of me and helped me a lot. So I want to thank them for giving me that chance. But yeah, that was the disappointment that we couldn't make it to the playoffs.
Well, listen, Jonas, all the best with Detroit.
Thanks a lot.
That's Jonas Gustavsson, who signs a new contract today with the Detroit Red Wings. The free agent frenzy continues here on TSN.
You're going up against a future Hall of Famer. Oh, what a save by Brodeur! Martin Brodeur takes a sure one away. 20 years, Marty Brodeur. Show it, and then take it away. This is all about Marty Brodeur. We weren't playing well. He bailed us out so many times.
James Duthie back with you here on the Free Agent Frenzy on TSN. About a half an hour until soccer coverage comes up and we switch over to TSN2. Here are the signings so far. Look at Matt Carkner at the bottom. As Bob McKenzie was explaining earlier, the Colorado official Twitter site has said they have signed Matt Carkner, but his agents say a deal not yet done. So we await further details on that. Also, Scott Clemenson goes back to Florida, where he'll be a backup again. Mike Lundin to the Ottawa Senators, 1 year, $1.15 million. Stu Bickle to the Rangers, 2 at the same number. And Zenon Konopka has just signed with the Minnesota Wild. That is a 2-year contract. You like, by the way, Lundin?
I do. Really solid. Tampa missed him last year. He went to Minnesota. He only played about 17 games, I think, in Minnesota last year.
So good pickup for Ottawa?
It's a good pickup, and he can play about 20 minutes a game. He doesn't score. He's not there to score. But think about no Matt Gilroy, no potentially Philip Kuba. It's a nice fit. It's a real nice fit. It's a safe fit. He played with Ben Bishop at the University of Maine for a couple of years, so there's a familiarity there with the new goaltender of Ottawa. But this is a good, safe player, Mark and Ray.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the losses that Ottawa feels they're gonna suffer, whether I guess Carkner more or less is gone. Is he? Are we not assuming that? You know, Kuba's going to get lots of talk from around the league, and so Lundin becomes a real affordable, really effective fit for them.
One thing that I would say too, the Murray brothers, you know, they really do know hockey players, so I trust their evaluation of talent, and I think Mike Lundin is a nice pickup for them.
To me, I want to talk about 2 of the more intriguing names on the board. We'll start with the forward in Alexander Semin, because the skill nobody here on this panel can question. And if you actually look at his numbers compared to Zach Parise over the last few years, if you go by pure goals, again, we're not comparing him to Zach Parise as a player, but the numbers hold up very well between Alexander Semin and Zach Parise as far as goals scored over the last few years in their career. 06, 07, 31, 38. This is Parise, then Semin. 31, 38, 32, 26, 45, 34, 38, 40. So very, very similar numbers. Would you take a chance on Semin?
The difference is one guy has a ton of character, one guy has no character. One guy scores 30 goals and doesn't help his team. One guy scores 25 goals and he helps them in every single way.
Right.
So, yeah, I would sign him. He's going to be banished to a place like Columbus or someplace like that, and that's where those guys do. They head to the island of misfit toys.
Well, what about if he goes to a place where he respects people around him?
I would say, like, Detroit could probably bring him in and have that ability to bring him in and surround him with a Datsuk. You've got to have a really, really strong group. There's an old NHL general manager says either take a guy that's a complete winner or take a guy who's a complete loser. He falls in that category. Maybe they can change him. I don't like, you don't change people that much. I'd be cautious.
Yeah, I guess if you're desperate for the one shot,
yeah,
then he can give it to you, but he doesn't give you a whole lot else.
This is not a great teammate. I'm telling you right now, not a good guy to have around your group unless you've got unbelievably strong leadership and just rely on, he's the ultimate coach killer. That's what he is.
Was Zenon Konopka, we have him on the line, guys? Sorry? Hey, Zenon, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, hey Zenon, sorry, weren't sure if we'd hooked up with you yet. All right, so the decision, when did you make it and what made your decision?
Well, everything happened a lot quicker than probably expected, but it was something that, you know, I felt like Minnesota was an underrated team. I thought the organization's a great organization, and I feel like we have a chance to win. So it just seemed like everything was right, and I'm excited to be part of the team and family there, and looking to take it to the next level.
Was it tough to leave Ottawa, a team that had a lot of success last year, surprising success, a place where you were a pretty popular hockey player?
Well, you know, it's something that, you know, I learned a lot of, you know, hockey lessons and life lessons from Ottawa, and I'll take a bunch of those to Minnesota and try to work with, you know, some of the younger guys. And, I mean, but, you know, obviously it's a business and decisions have to be made. Something that I think Minnesota's, you know, the best fit for me, and it gives me the best opportunity not to excel my game, but also to, I think, make a deep run into the playoffs.
Listen, Zenon, congratulations. Good luck in Mini.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Zenon Konopka signs with the Minnesota Wild. Let's send it over to Gordon Miller.
Okay, we have some news for you, something that is happening and something that's not. Let's start with Pierre LeBrun, because what's not happening is actually more interesting.
Well, the Red Wings were going to send a delegation to Newport to the offices. Obviously, huge interest in Zach Parise, like a lot of teams, and they're not going now. They still want Zach Parise. They still want to negotiate, and they will, but they're not going to do it in person.
And I guess a backlog of teams, just there's only so much space in the calendar. And another signing by the Minnesota Wild, who are very active today.
Very active. Torrey Mitchell has been signed by the Minnesota Wild. 3 years at $1.9 million for Torrey Mitchell. So good signing for the Minnesota Wild. There was a lot of interest, or so we understand, in Torrey Mitchell, and a lot of interest in George Parros. We just heard from Zenon Konopka, who agreed, signed the 2-year deal with the Minnesota Wild. But George Parros has at least 3 firm offers on the table for his services, and a handful of teams who are saying we'll circle back a bit later. So he has lots of options.
And just as a follow-up on the continuing saga of Matt Carkner, the Colorado Avalanche tweeted out that they'd officially signed him, that both he and John Mitchell, the John Mitchell one we've confirmed. The agent for Matt Carkner, Larry Kelly, says on the record that right now there's no agreement in place with the Colorado Avalanche for Matt Carkner, that they're awaiting word from Matt Carkner on a final decision. So take that for what it's worth, but right now, unless things change momentarily, Matt Carkner doesn't have a deal according to his agent. With the Colorado Avalanche. The Avalanche tweeted that he does.
Well,
they should know.
You'd think someone would know. James?
All right, thank you, guys. We'll take another break here and return on the Free Agent Frenzy here on TSN.
Great play by Doan, who's got a wicked wrist shot. Big hit by Shane Doan. Out in front, Doan, he scores! Shane Doan. That was a great battle.
By the Toronto Maple Leafs, it appears he's landed in Canada. Here's Gord Miller.
Yes, we've got a couple of deals to tell you about. Let's see, there's a former Toronto Maple Leaf going to Montreal and a former Montreal Canadian going to Ottawa. We'll start with Colby Armstrong, Darren.
Just got off the phone with him 20 seconds ago. He confirms, well, it was his tweet. He tweeted the news.
Broke his own news.
Yeah, he broke it. 1 year with the Montreal Canadiens. It's for $1 million. And to quote Colby Armstrong, I'm jacked. So he wants, well, he wants to prove to the world that he still has lots to give, that he can still play, be a contributing factor.
Cheddar.
What's that?
Half clapper, top cheddar.
Clapper, top cheddar.
So he's excited.
Pierre Lebrun, news of Guillaume Latendresse.
Guillaume Latendresse, 1 an, 1 year, $1.2 million plus bonuses, pending a physical with the Ottawa Senators. Pretty good pickup, in my opinion, for Ottawa, top 6 forward.
If he can stay healthy.
Yeah.
Say his name again.
Guillaume Latendresse.
Nice. James?
Half clapper, top cheddar would be demi-clapper. Au fromage? Au fromage? We'll have Colby working on that if we get him on in a few minutes.
I tried.
You still taking the lessons anyway?
Yeah, sure.
Good for you. It could be an RDS thing in there for you. You could work for both. Yeah, there's always Quebec. We'll try to get Colby Armstrong in with us in just a few minutes. Let's talk about both of these signings. First, Armstrong in Montreal.
Ability to get around the ice would be my only question with Armstrong. He, of course, was just decimated last year with injury. I mean, 4 or 5 games into the season, he gets a high ankle sprain. Once he sprains his ankle, he never catches up again. So, there will be lots of fire in Armstrong, but for me, it would just be his ability to get around the ice.
Yeah, I think the fire has to manifest itself in him getting in the best shape of his life. If Kobe does that, then he can be a decent player. But I think the injuries and all that, aging has caught up to him, and that's why he's no longer a Toronto Maple Leaf. But yeah, I like the way he's strong in the puck. I like his ability. Montreal needs some depth, people with character, but he's got to show that character by getting in great shape.
Tweeted it also was his favorite team growing up, the Montreal Canadiens.
And I will back him up on that because he said dinner at my house in Montreal, and he always told me that he loved the Montreal Canadiens, so he's not telling a lie on that. That being said, they lose Matthew Darche, who's not going to be back in Montreal. They had to identify the character that Mark just talked about. So you re-sign Travis Moen, a Saskatchewan guy. You bring in another Saskatchewan guy, Colby Armstrong. So they're identifying their need for character in the deeper positions at the forward position. That's so critical. I know Mark talked about it. I've talked about it before. They didn't have enough character on that team to get through the rough patches of an 82-game schedule. With Colby and Travis Moen re-signed, they do, especially when you consider the loss of Matthew Darche. He was a huge character player for that team.
Guillaume Latendresse is another one of these guys who has moments. He had moments in Minnesota. He had moments in Montreal where you go, man, this guy could be something.
It's the Montreal Canadiens' fault. They rushed him into the league as an 18-year-old. He didn't play in the 2 World Juniors, which he should have. He never should have been allowed to play as a 19-year-old in the NHL. They didn't look after him at all. That's why they were forced to trade him. It's the organization's fault more than anything else.
Yeah, but since then, he could get in shape.
I would agree with that. But again, he was given everything for free at the beginning.
But it doesn't matter. At a certain point, you got to mature here. And Latendresse, as we see here, has got some pretty terrific hands. He's a big body. He does not skate particularly well, but he's never gotten himself in great shape. If you want to play now, you can't be like you were 15 or 20 years ago when you can kind of be soft around the edges. The game goes way too fast.
Yeah, the lumbering speed that he possesses doesn't translate well to the National Hockey League today, but I do agree that there is another step for him to get, and that step probably comes from conditioning.
Let's check in with Dave Hodge and the reporters with more analysis.
He could say his name fast 100 times like Pierre did. That'd tire me out. All right. This is a day where there will be winners and losers among players and teams. What about the NHL? Michael, could this be a devastating day for the league if Parise and Brodeur leave New Jersey and Suter leaves Nashville?
A devastating day for 2 franchises. We'll start with the New Jersey Devils that since moving to New Jersey in the early 80s has been a consistently good franchise after it got over the hump. Now suddenly, if everything happens as we suspect it might, this franchise will be decimated on top of the financial problems. They've been wiped out of their 2 most recognizable players, and this franchise will be in tatters.
Well, but Martin Brodeur at 40 was not the long-term answer in goal. So there was going to be a passing of the torch there, a transition that was going to have to happen sooner or later. Just nobody thought it would be sooner until the last couple of days. The Parise thing hurts more because you're talking about a player in his prime, who is really the future of that team.
It would be devastating, I'm told, if we didn't go straight to the to the sign breakers and find out what's happening. Gord?
All right, thank you, David. One of the most intriguing unrestricted free agents out there, Ray Whitney, who had a terrific year for the Phoenix Coyotes, made the second All-Star team, and he has moved. Someone? Anyone?
Ray Whitney, Aaron Ward has tweeted, Ray, who of course is on our esteemed NHL and TSN panel, although I think he's on a beach in Carolina today. Ray Whitney has agreed to terms with the Dallas Stars, $9 million over 2 years, total of $4 million in salary and $5 million in bonuses.
So there's the biggest fish so far in terms of money, and so Ray Whitney moves to Dallas. So the Stars jump deep into the free agent waters. James?
Okay, and we'll get back to Dave Hodge and the reporters to continue their thoughts in just a second. First, your thoughts on Whitney to Dallas.
Well, I was astounded by his season last year. I mean, just a remarkable year for a guy. As the game's gotten bigger and faster, Ray, because he's so clever, is able to find the puck, find the area, make the play. But he struggled in the playoffs, and I wonder if that, again, at close to 40 years old, if that catches up to you in a long season. But he is something that Dallas doesn't have, and that's a creator, a guy that can make something with the puck happen much easier. And with the trade of Ribeiro, they lose some creativity, and now they bring it back in with Ray Whitney.
It's a nice connection there. I know he knows Tom Glardy, the new owner of the Stars. That's certainly a connection. I think the other thing is they do have those big-bodied forwards in Jamie Benn and Louis Eriksson and Brendan Morrow and those guys who can finish. Ray he's a great scorer, but he's also such an adept passer.
Same question, though, with Brodeur, completely different positions, obviously, but how much longer does he have? Because at some point, there'll be a tipping point, right?
He's going to be more of a specialist than anything else. There's a reason why he led the Phoenix Coyotes at scoring this year. He's a power play. He's going to be a power play specialist. This league's become a power play, penalty kill kind of a league. Ray Whitney can still play because of that.
I think, again, it's those big guys that play with you, though, that allow you to come in and weave your way through. And Ray Whitney does that very well. He'll have Jamie Benn. He'll have Louis Eriksson to do that for him.
He will have a finisher to play with. And you're right. There's one thing that Ray can do, and that's dish the puck at the right time to the right player. And, man, I just thought it was a remarkable year for him last year.
And even at his age, that would be the most dangerous offensive weapon that we've seen signed so far here, an hour and 46 minutes into free agency.
First-team All-Star.
Yeah, let's check in once again with Dave Hodge and the reporters.
It occurs to me that if we're in the process of burying a franchise or two, we must hear from Steve.
Well, you know, usually it's people, not franchises.
Devils, Predators, how bad could this be?
Lou Lamoriello has done a remarkable job in running the New Jersey Devils all these years. 24 years on the job, 5 trips to the Stanley Cup Finals. He's insulated his players from whatever external problems there's been financially. But it's clear now he can't insulate them anymore, or Brodeur would still be there and Parise might be signing back there. But if you lose 2 guys like that off the team that went to the Stanley Cup Final after everything that's gone on there, knowing that the ownership is in disarray, that just brings total attention to the franchise being a disaster. And in Nashville's case, if Suter leaves, how long before Weber leaves? How long before that whole thing that's always been a little tentative gets worse?
Well, you know what's interesting? There's so many advantages for small and mid-market teams in the current system compared to the old. But the one advantage you had in the old system, you never had a free agent walk out the door on you at 27 and get nothing for him. And that's what the Nashville Predators are facing in both Suter and potentially Shea Weber. Because if you couldn't afford a guy, you could trade the asset to a team that would give you something in return. But these guys are looking at getting nothing.
Maybe no bigger headlines today than the headlines that will be written about the Devils and the Predators, one way or the other. James?
All right, thank you, guys. And the details of the Whitney deal: $4 million in salary, $500,000 in bonus in each of the 2 years on that contract. So Ray Whitney becomes a member of the Dallas Stars as the free agent frenzy continues here on TSN.
He is a bundle of talent, and he really competes.
Whitney, he scores! And the Coyotes have gotten it right back.
He's been a terrific veteran.
Cancel, save it in front, score! Ray Whitney ends it for Phoenix.
This is what you expect from Whitney.
He's Mr. Everything for the Coyotes.
NHL on TSN Free Agent Frenzy is brought to you by Coors Light, proud sponsor of the NHL.
Kraft Celebration Tour, we're about to announce the 20 finalists, which will lead to 10 winners for this year's Kraft Celebration Tour. 5:30 p.m. Eastern today on SportsCenter. They will announce your 20 finalists. And we're almost 2 hours into the free agency period and almost have 20 signings so far. James Duthie back with Ray Ferraro, Mark Crawford, and Pierre Maguire. Talking about interesting names, another would be Olli Jokinen, who has a ton of pluses, but also some negatives. Let's look at both of those right now. Pluses for Olli Jokinen. 473 post-lockout points. No impending UFA has scored more than that. The only top-line center on the UFA market this offseason, at least he was in Calgary, a top-line center, missed just 16 games over 12 seasons. So those are all the pros, but the negatives, of course, really struggled down the stretch for Calgary and had a surgery to repair an abdominal tear. 2, 1, and 3. 3 points and a -14 over the last 13 games of the season. So I ask you, would you and where would you with Olli Jokinen?
Well, it depends where, of course, but I mean, there are teams with significant needs up the middle. Whether you like Olli Jokinen in general or not, I think you have to separate Jokinen now from Jokinen in the past. I played with Olli in Los Angeles when he was breaking in, and he had no commitment to fitness. He had no commitment to working on his game. Somewhere along the line, Jokinen has changed the way he lives. He changes the way he eats. He doesn't drink anymore. He's started to make a full commitment to the National Hockey League. I think Olli Jokinen can help a good team. I really do.
2 places he could go, Winnipeg and Vancouver, I think are perfect fits for him.
He could go to Chicago.
Even I don't know if they'd go down that road.
Why,
I really don't.
They got Kruger in the middle?
I just don't think they're going to go down that road.
They got a whole this
But if
big
I were
behind
Vancouver,
Taves.
I'd be really worried just because of the Ryan Kessler situation. He fits in perfectly behind the Sedins.
I think Winnipeg's a spot for him. They've been good with Finns before. I mean, didn't Timo Solani and Teppo Numminen play there? They were pretty good.
They were pretty good players, yes.
Yeah, they worked out all right. We'll keep tracking Olli Jokinen and the rest of them as the free agent frenzy continues. Again, what we're going to do right now, we're about 5 minutes before the top of the hour. Soccer is just ahead over on TSN, and on TSN2 is where we'll continue for the next hour. So here's your TSN schedule. First of all, the pregame show comes up next, leading up to Spain and Italy for Euro 2012, the final. The kickoff at about 2:45. Brian Mudryk has SportsCenter, and the Owls and the Stamps continue the first weekend of the CFL season. Now, TSN2, that's where we'll be. Flick the dial if you want to stay with us. It continues on TSN2 for a full hour. Then we have the AT&T National, the final round, where apparently they'll have spectators today after the storms and all the trees were falling. The players played by themselves yesterday. Tiger in the hunt there. And then a special free agent frenzy recap. We'll tell you what else has gone on at 7 o'clock Eastern time. Mets and Dodgers on Sunday Night Baseball. So again, we're just about 2 hours in, and we have about 20 signings so far. The soccer boys in our studio today, they'll take over next on TSN for Spain and Italy for Euro 2012.
Go Italy.
It's open season for the NHL's free agents. The vaults have been opened. The names are being signed on dotted lines. All the biggest names are still on the market. How long before their faces come off the big board? Our insiders have all the answers as the 7 Canadian teams look to retool and reshape. Happy Canada Day. Free agent frenzy continues. Hello again, Canada. Hope you're enjoying your Canada Day. We've shifted over to TSN2. James Duthie alongside Ray Ferraro and his iPhone. Mark Crawford, Pierre Maguire, the insiders standing by in just a second. We're into hour 3 of the free agency period for the National Hockey League. Around 20 signings so far. Let us run through some of the significant wheeling and dealing that we've seen so far in the National Hockey League. And it happened just before we went on air that Jordan Staal and the Carolina Hurricanes agreed to a 10-year, $60 million contract extension. That'll kick in after next season. The Hurricanes acquired Staal at the draft from the Penguins. 25 goals, 25 assists last season for the Pens. The Oilers re-signing impending free agent Ryan Smith, a 2-year deal, $2.25 million a season. Smith returned to the Oilers last year, scoring 19 goals and adding 27 assists, playing all 82 games. The Dallas Stars signing former Coyotes winger Ray Whitney, 2-year deal, $9 million, 24 goals and 53 assists with the Coyotes last season, and a terrific season for Whitney. Now in Phoenix, the Coyotes and David Moss agree on a 2-year deal. The right winger played just 32 games last season, 2 goals and 7 assists. So Moss leaves Calgary and is on his way to the desert. Colby Armstrong bought out yesterday by the Toronto Maple Leafs, signing today with the Montreal Canadiens, the deal for 1 year and $1 million for Colby Armstrong. The Ottawa Senators also making a couple of moves. One, signing Guillaume Latendresse to a 1-year, $1.2 million deal. 5 goals, 4 assists in 16 games last season with the Minnesota Wild. The Tampa Bay Lightning signed recently acquired Benoit Pouliot to a 1-year, $1.8 million deal. The former Bruins left winger scored 16 goals, 16 assists last season. And the Detroit Red Wings signed Jonas Gustavsson, a 2-year contract worth $1.5 million per season. The former Toronto Maple Leaf netminder, 17-17-4 in what was an up-and-down season last year with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And we have a couple more to add to that list as we send it over to Gordon Miller and the Breakers.
All right, we've got some stuff's come out in the last few minutes. A new landing spot for Brad Boyes.
Brad Boyes, formerly the Buffalo Sabres, signed a 1-year deal for $1 million with the New York Islanders.
And by the way, pending a new collective bargaining agreement, the New York Islanders have some work to do to get to the salary. They'll be signing all of us to deals before the season starts. Darren Dreger, what do you got?
Well, just going through the Ray Whitney deal, which we know to be 2 years with the Dallas Stars at a total of $9 million. Now, there's $1 million in signing bonus and then the $4 million per in salary, but it also includes a no-move clause and a no-trade clause, but the no-trade clause is modified, and this isn't unusual, but upon request, Ray Whitney can submit a list of 10 teams that he'd be willing to go to.
Okay, and Pierre?
Adam Bursch in San Jose, 4 years, essentially got the Travis Moen deal, around $1.8 million a year.
All right, and still monitoring what's going on with Zach Parise and Ryan Suter. The anticipated parade to Newport Sports has one fewer float in it. The Detroit Red Wings have elected not to go. They're going to continue talking, but they'll not be making an appearance in person. James?
Yeah, we'll head out there now to Mississauga. I think this is the moment we became a parody of ourselves last year when this parking lot in some nondescript low-rise office building in Mississauga became this place where all these people were gathering to see if they could catch a glimpse of Brad Richards. Gino Reda remains there right now. What have you been doing besides checking out the ice cream truck behind you and the Irish pub inside?
Okay, you check on both of those, James, and we did set up quite the party. This is all for us. This has got nothing to do with Canada Day. This is a celebration that Canadians are hoping to welcome Zach Parise possibly signing in Canada, but it's not happening. Gord mentioned the fact that the Red Wings float in the parade has been eliminated. I got news for you. There is no parade. There are no floats. There has not been a single body showing up here today. It's hard to understand exactly why. This time last year, we'd already seen the LA Kings trying to break into the building, and they couldn't even make it in. They got locked out of the building. We saw a number of teams making their way throughout the day. Every team had an appointment, come in, make their pitch, then leave, and we had a chance to talk to the teams going in and coming out with what their anticipation and expectations were. This time, nothing at all. We know there's a lot of interest. The Minnesota Wild have actually presented their offer. The Pittsburgh Penguins have had Sidney Crosby actually call Zach Parise. The Winnipeg Jets said they're very interested. The Red Wings said just because they're not coming doesn't mean they're not interested. They're still very interested. Teams are interested, but remember what happened last year. There was huge speculation that Brad Richards already made up his mind. He was going to New York, and everybody else was wasting their time coming in and making offers. And in the end, it's exactly what happened. He went to New York. So the question now becomes, is that why people aren't making the trip, thinking that Zach Parise already has a pretty good idea of where he's going? Or if teams just decided they're not going to make the trip? The other thing could be the fact that maybe the price is too high. Zach Parise at this point is looking for a $12 million signing bonus today and $12 million more 1 year from today. That's $24 million in signing bonuses in a year and a day. So we're not really sure why, James, but we can tell you there is indeed no parade currently. If something happens, we'll let you know, but it's looking like the sign-off before kickoff, probably not going to happen today, James.
Disappointed in your work, Gino, but keep it up out there. Oh, you make promises like that, sign off before kickoff. He tries to get it trending with a hashtag. He's got to deliver something. Instead, he's alone in an empty parking lot.
He's got ice cream.
He does have ice cream. He's doing better than we are in this 108-degree studio right now. Ray Ferraro, Mark Crawford, Pierre Maguire. Let's also talk about the other sidebar story to the day. Could become the headliner, is that's the big names that continue to wait out there on the trade market. And that would be fronted by Rick Nash and Roberto Luongo. For Nash, we're 6 months into this now. since the first trade talk came out of Columbus. He remains a Columbus Blue Jacket. Roberto Luongo, Mike Gillis has said from the beginning he would take his time on this, but wow, we're at July 1st. Schneider now signed. Luongo remains a Vancouver Canuck with, again, Florida expected to still be the front runner right now for Luongo, Bobby Ryan, Chalmerson, Steve Ott, Jay Bouwmeester, Ales Hemsky. So let's start at the top with Nash. Scott Housen seems to be holding out to the same thing he said at the deadline, to what initially he wanted, whatever it is, 4 or 5 major pieces. At some point, you have to lower that if you're not getting any of those offers.
The player, but it has to be reasonable too. There's got to be a meeting in the mind, in the middle, anyways. But you look at Ottawa. Is he going to waive to go to Ottawa? I don't know. But Ottawa's clearly a team that's interested in Rick Nash. You look at the New York Rangers. They're not prepared to blow up the solid young infrastructures that they have. You look at the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't think they have enough metal to get the deal done. And then where do you go with Rick Nash? Is it Los Angeles? I don't think they want to blow their team up. That's why you have to amend or change a little bit of what you're asking for.
Well, do you think that's what Scott Housen is waiting for? Is he hoping that he waits, that maybe Rick Nash gets a little more desperate and extends that list, which his agent has said he will never do, that initial list?
Well, I think there's so many moving parts really for both deals. Don't you think the length of the contract with the uncertainty of what's going to happen past the new collective bargaining agreement makes the trades that much more difficult? I would think the Nash deal is going to be closer to a trade, a hockey trade, than the Luongo deal. I mean, I know there's the last 3 years of Luongo's deal that are pretty much write-offs, but I don't think the Canucks are going to get anywhere near what they would like to get for Luongo, as close as Columbus might get for Rick Nash.
I think that's pretty fair. I think that with Nash, you've got a guy that people covet. They want the size. He adds to their scoring. He is a guy that you project to continue to be on the upside or keep playing well, where Luongo is now getting on the downside of his career. I do think that there should be the market for Luongo, though, because he can still play. He can still play at a high level, and he's the difference maker. He comes into a team like Toronto, then he gives them what they desperately need. He gives them a goaler. He allows their defense to become better. And they have some of the pieces that a team like Vancouver would need. They need help at the center position. Tyler Bozak would certainly be a piece of that deal. He fits into that third-line center hole in Vancouver, and you keep going on down that list. I'm sure there's a couple of prospects that they might be able to prospect.
And people keep throwing out the 10 years on Luongo when he's always been the type of guy. I don't think
a team with money.
No, but he doesn't want to be Marty Brodeur and play till, you know, he's the type of guy who wants to play at the peak and then retire. So probably 4 or 5 more years, which makes the contract a lot more feasible.
Let me ask you guys a question. Again, you look at a trade that happened during the draft. You look at Jordan Staal going to the Carolina Hurricanes. What was in that deal? The 8th overall pick. They used it for a defenseman. Derek Pouliot from the Portland Winterhawks, Pittsburgh did. Then you look at Brian Dumoulin coming out of Boston College, an NHL-ready player, comes from Carolina. Then you have Brandon Sutter, who could be a second-line center, but is a third-line center. So basically the framework for a Rick Nash kind of a deal, even though Jordan Stahl's never won a Rocket Richard, the framework's there, because you can use that as a comparable. And you look at Staal, you're getting a lot of age.
So something like that with one more piece,
yeah,
maybe?
That's got to be the formula for doing that deal. It shouldn't be that hard, but clearly Columbus, and I don't blame them because they're trading a centerpiece of their team, they got to make the right deal. But that should be the framework for any deal.
And it still is a team that has a goalie prospect, because they, you know, even though they signed Bobrovsky, they still need a goalie.
Big time. Huge.
Vancouver play a dangerous game in waiting, though, because of the limited market out there. We know Florida is interested. That would seem to be a good fit. We know Luongo. Toronto's still got interest, but there's only so many places after that.
I don't think there's any choice. They have to wait because they don't have what you need when you want to make a deal, and that's leverage.
But if you wait and, let's say, Toronto and Florida fill their needs elsewhere, then suddenly you have a goaltender, and it'd be an ugly situation if you had to bring him back to camp.
Well, I mean, as well as Schneider and Luongo got along last year, and I thought that was quite remarkable, the way two guys that really want the net and deserve the net got along and made no problem. It would almost be untenable to bring them back at this point. What are you going to do? You've just signed Corey Schneider as your starter, and now you're going to say, okay, Roberto's back, and now we're happy with these two goaltenders. I think the biggest difficulty that they have is, you know, you mentioned a Bozak in a deal with Toronto. Start-stop is Jake Gardiner. I mean, the Canucks want Jake Gardiner. The Leafs aren't giving him up.
They're not.
So it has to. Now the next prospect is maybe Corbinian Holzer.
That's not going to happen either.
I think it's going to be a combination of that. And you know, your point is a really strong one, though. Like, you know, like that's absolutely the way it is.
Well, Florida Vancouver, if it's Florida, wants one of those top prospects, or a good Branson, or one of the top prospects in the system. Florida's saying no way on that. Somewhere along the way, somebody's got to give or find middle ground.
Would you not think if it's Florida, somewhere Jose Theodore's got to go back?
Yeah, you'd think so
in the
as well.
deal now, because
that probably wouldn't be a problem.
That's not a hard one. That's the easy part.
But I'm just saying, like, he's going to have to go back. They just re-signed Clemenson. Now they have Markstrom still sitting there. So you get crowded. The crease is a pretty small place.
Let's shift back to the other focus of the day, which is the free agents and the top names available. And in our top 15 so far, only one of the names initially in our top 15 is signed, and that's Whitney. So Parise, Suter, looks like they might wait to be on today. Brodeur as well still out there. Shane Doan at number 4. Shane Doan, again, if you missed it earlier on in the show, to wait until July 9th when hopefully the Phoenix ownership situation will be resolved. That's when, if it's not resolved, then that's when he may seriously test the free agent market. And Matt Carle, who you guys talked about earlier, who's going to be somebody's perhaps second best thing, the team that misses out on Suter may likely go hard after Matt Carle. 6 through 10. Jason Garrison's another guy from Florida who had that terrific season at the perfect time and is likely to make a lot of money today. Alexander Semin, you guys talked about, very tempting because of the goal production. Olli Jokinen, Jiri Hudler, and Philippe Kuba round out our top 10. Then at 11 through 15, Parenteau, Whitney, Yager, and Bryce Salvador, and Dustin Penner, who again, the stock has probably gone up because of his performance he had with the Los Angeles Kings down the stretch after a bad end of the season, was really strong in the playoffs so far. What was that? Okay, so the Karkner situation gets much more interesting because Aaron Ward has just tweeted that Matt Karkner has signed with the New York Islanders. So a 3-year contract. So this becomes the more interesting developments of the day, because again, the Colorado Avalanche officially tweeted, what, an hour ago, that Matt Karkner had signed with the Colorado Avalanche. His agents right from the outset said there was no deal done. And now, according to our Aaron Ward, Matt Karkner signing with the New York Islanders, a 3-year contract. So
Avalanche Twitter fail.
Yeah. People gave the Kings Twitter some hard times for the jokes they made. This one, a much more serious error, if that's the case. Somebody might be looking for a new job.
Yeah, you know what? Good for the Islanders. They end up with a, you were talking earlier about the grit that Karkner brought to Ottawa last year. Now he goes to the Islanders. It's a good sign for them.
He's a serviceable player that brings a real size element and the physicality to a team, and everybody needs it.
Islanders got some defensemen here.
Yeah, they do have some defensemen. That's the one thing people aren't talking about there. They've got some serious defensemen, and he'll make a guy like Mark Streit a little bit more serviceable because he'll stand up and create some room. That's the one thing, and Mark talked about it, Ray talked about it. Matt Karkner brings some thump. He really does.
You know what? Interesting developments both sides of the border then the last couple of days. You have Justin Schultz signing with the Edmonton Oilers, who, for years, basically since Pronger left, have had this thing sitting by them that people don't want to go to Edmonton. So you have a free agent that could go anywhere, going to the Edmonton Oilers, which is a huge defining moment for that franchise. And now the New York Islanders in the last few minutes sign Brad Boyes and sign Matt Karkner. So interesting developments there. Going to take a break? All right, we'll take a short break and return here on TSN 2 on the Free Agent Frenzy.
Zach Parise, one of the most outstanding one-on-one players in the league. Right on the money for the captain. Drive, save, rebound, score! I don't think there's a more electrifying player in the entire National Hockey League. Parise, quicker than quick.
NHL on TSN Free Agent Frenzy is brought to you by Coors Light, proud sponsor of the NHL.
We have some soccer on the other network today, and tonight also Alouettes and Stampeders football action as week 1 in the CFL season continues 7 o'clock Eastern time on Canada's sports leader. We are pleased to be joined by the newest member of the Dallas Stars, Ray Whitney. It wasn't quite as dramatic as the Justin Schultz thing yesterday that unveiled on Twitter, but we know you had a ton of teams interested. What made your decision to go to Dallas?
Well, first and foremost, they were the one team that was, wasn't scared of doing a second year, and that was pretty much it. It was just the term of the deal, and obviously there's a little bit of a red flag at 40. I was listening to Razor earlier and questioning that whether at what point do you slow down, but I'd like to think I got a couple more in me.
Well, after this,
you're 40.
take a little shot at Ferraro. That's okay.
Yeah, I know.
We're ready for the digs. So what is, you got a couple, were they really the only team that wanted that second year?
Well, you know, it's funny. I think league-wide, you know, at 40, you know, how often or when was the last time you saw a guy at 40 sign 2 years? And there was a lot of teams interested, and none of them were balking at the price. You know, sort of say it was. Most of them were a little bit concerned with the second year, and I do get that. I understand it's you know, at 40, but you know, you look at the way, just in general, the way the society is now. People live longer, people age healthier. These kids playing now, they aren't drinking beer like we used to early in our days. They're drinking protein shakes and taking care of themselves. So these kids may play to their 45, and 20 years from now, we may think that, well, 40, well, that was a pretty nice number at one time, but I think guys will be able to play longer now with the modern medicine and surgeries and the way the guys take care of their bodies now. I think you'll see guys playing longer.
Well, how have you done it? How did you have that? Besides Ray mentioning your age, he also said correctly that he was astounded by your season last year. 24 goals, 53 assists. So how have you done it?
Aside from the natural ability? I just mess with you guys. You know what? It's really the product with a pretty good system. Dave Tippett is an unbelievable coach, and he gave me to play a pretty good system. I had a right winger this year who had a tremendous season in Redeem Verbata, scoring 35. You know, just everything has to work. You know, work out for you in that sense. You have to have a coach who's going to believe in you and a teammates who can do it something, you know, with you. But training is a big thing now, and diet. I train pretty much year-round now. I took 7 days, 8 days off at the end of the year and started up again. So I think the older you get, you realize that if you lose one of your steps, you're never going to gain it back. And I've just been trying like hell to make sure I don't lose that step, because you know, again, what you do, I don't want to be a guy who's dragging on society and taking a spot away from somebody who's better than me.
I know you've said the second year was everything in your decision to go to Dallas, but was the Phoenix situation, the way it's dragged on, and still questions about whether they'll get this done, did that play any part in your decision?
Yeah, and as it will probably play a huge factor in Shane Doan's decision, and that's why you'll wait. You won't hear anything from him for a few days. You know, we're not sure what's going on with the situation there. There's the vote coming up next week, and you know, certainly if you sign a 2-year contract there, you could be there this year, but who knows if you'd be there the following year. So it's probably a concern, and it handicaps them a little bit in general, and it did last year. I said at the end of the season, it's tough when you don't have an owner. It really is. Phoenix has done a great job limiting that as a group, so you don't feel it as much as it really does play effect in what's going on with the business side and your scheduling, and there's some factors that not having an owner does. And I feel for the Phoenix Coyotes in their ability to continue moving forward without one.
Well, listen, we're a little disappointed you got the second year, because after this, we'd like to have you on the panel after a year, but we'll wait too.
I've been looking at you guys up there. I'm not sure. I got to tighten myself up a little bit up top. You guys all look pretty good up there. I'm not sure there's a spot for me.
Stay playing.
I got the face for radio here. I'll just be the radio guy.
No, Whit, don't ever leave, Whit. Don't ever leave.
Well, you know how you train.
You guys are doing a great job. I know it's a long day for you guys. You guys sounding great.
Well, we appreciate it, and you don't have to suck up anymore. You already got your contract.
Yeah,
but,
yeah, that's right. Yeah, no kidding.
The panel can wait a couple of years for you.
Yeah, I plan on it. Yeah.
That's Ray Whitney, who signed the 2-year contract.
And Aaron Ward wanted me to make sure to say he won.
Yeah, I know. He's the new insider breaking that one.
Yeah, he's the new insider. Yeah.
Past relationships don't have anything to do there, right? That's not even fair.
No.
I mean, how do Mackenzie and Drager and LeBrun compete with teammates on a cup winner?
Well, I've known Mackenzie since I was 16, so he should be very comfortable calling me.
Yeah, he mentioned that, and he was wondering why he didn't get the scoop. But anyway,
all right.
Congrats, Ray.
That's great, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, that is Ray Whitney.
What's he talking about, by the way? Red wine? I can say this. I was out with him in Boston. We had some red wine. So it's not just drinking the protein shakes. He's having some red wine from time to time.
It's all about balance.
Works for the French beer. Let's bring in John Liu now with the Montreal Canadiens, who've, let's see, by my calculations, Staubitz out, Colby Armstrong in today. What do you make of those moves, and what else can we expect, John?
Well, first of all, the two moves that you described, James, it's a character for character, although Colby Armstrong, of course, doesn't bring quite the same portfolio as Brad Staubitz in terms of the number of majors that he would potentially rack up. But definitely, it's like by not bringing back Brad Staubitz, who became a very popular figure in the Canadiens dressing room last year, Marc Bergevin has picked up character in Colby Armstrong, a guy that will likely fill a fourth-line left-wing role, which will be very important for the Canadiens, creating some depth in that position. Great dressing room guy. He was Sid Crosby's best friend in Pittsburgh, and so, you know, good in the dressing room, good with his teammates, and gritty individual. So he'll probably be very popular with the Montreal Canadiens and with the fans here.
Thank you very much, John. Appreciate that. That is John Lou in Montreal. Sorry, Pierre, you were saying?
No, I was just going to say, the one thing we forgot to mention earlier on, Colby Armstrong was a first-round pick of the Pittsburgh Penguins, and one of the guys that he worked with in Wilkes-Barre and also in the NHL, Michel Therrien, the new coach of the Montreal Canadiens. And I think there's a lot of merit in terms of Michel Therrien knows this guy's body of work, how tough he is, and you guys talked about his conditioning levels. I'm sure that's going to be one of the first phone calls from Marc Bergevin and Michel Therrien to Colby Armstrong. Get your butt in shape.
And here is Colby Armstrong, I believe, on the phone. You there, Colby?
I'm here.
There's another former panelist who spurns the panel to go back to the National Hockey League. Congratulations on joining the Montreal Canadiens. How do you feel?
I'm so happy and I'm excited excited for the opportunity and, you know, a fresh start and a new chance here. So I couldn't be happier with the situation I'm going to.
You said before this was the team you loved growing up, correct?
Yeah, I was in the Montreal Canadiens fan club as a kid.
Wow.
I was like the only guy in Saskatoon in the club, I think.
So how did it come about, Colby? Did you get multiple offers, and what was it about Montreal besides the fact it was your boyhood team?
Yeah, you know what? After yesterday, I was obviously down, disappointed. I wanted to come back and, you know, have a solid comeback year next year in Toronto, and I was really looking forward to that, kind of redeeming myself, and, you know, after having some bad luck and then trying to get back in the lineup and not being able to and getting scratched down the end of the season this year, obviously unhappy with it and wanted to come and, you know, prove them wrong. And they thought otherwise. They didn't think I could do it anymore. So, you know, I'm pumped to go to a team that wants me, and they know what I can do with Coach Therrien. They know how I can play. He knows what he can get out of me. And, you know, they just came to me today and asked me if I'd be interested. And I think with that, all that stuff in play, with the situation and, you know, the relationship with Coach Therrien, how he knows what he can get out of me and knows what to expect of the way I can play, I think it's you know, the best fit for me in my career. And I'm so pumped about it. Like, I'm so excited.
Well, the guys talked about when you were at your best earlier in your career, you played on the edge, very, very physical, and you could score a lot of timely goals. The questions that have arisen are about your health. So are you healthy now? And say to us what I guess you said to the Montreal Canadiens in terms of you can still be that player you were a couple of years ago. Why?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, I've had some bad luck, take a puck in the foot, my foot breaks, take a puck in the hand, my fingers break. You know, it's just like, it was one of those things where I just couldn't catch a break. So to get this, you know, this weight off my back almost of the bad luck it feels, I feel like my luck has changed. I feel like, you know, I get a fresh start. I can still play the same way. I think Coach knows, you know, players to put with me or situations to put me in to get the most out of me and have me play my game. And I feel comfortable with him and knowing where I fit in. So, you know, I think it's just it's a good fit personally, and you know, I think you know, I think I can still play. I think I got lots left, and I'm excited about it. There's no question in my mind about that.
Well, listen, when you were doing your stint on the panel a couple of playoffs ago, you brought up the half clapper, top cheddar thing. We made T-shirts out of it. So Pierre, help me out on this. We have it in French now for the translation. I want you to repeat after me because you have to say it. Demi-clapper. Say it.
Demi-clapper.
Au fromage.
Au fromage.
There you go.
Wow,
the new Colby Armstrong Montreal slogan.
Demi-clapper au fromage.
Demi-clapper au fromage. Very well done. There's Colby Armstrong.
Thank you, boys.
Newest member of the Montreal Canadiens. Good luck.
Bonne chance.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Colby Armstrong signs a contract today with the Montreal Canadiens. Among the other players still out there, a guy you said would be a good fit for the Montreal Canadiens, Jaromir Jagr, as the free agent frenzy continues on TSN 2.
from Jaromir Jagr. Out to the right point, shot, big save, rebound, Jagr, he scores! Back for Jagr, scores! Jaromir Jagr with another salute. The best ever! What a stop by Marty Brodeur. That might be the save of the playoffs right there.
Marty doing his best work when the pressure's on. Marty Brodeur putting on a show. 100th career playoff win.
Said it off the top, it would still be bizarre to see that gentleman in another uniform, but Martin Brodeur testing free agency. He's still out there now, as are most of the big names, Parise, Suter, and no major developments as far as those guys so far. We have Jamie McLennan ahead with Post to Post to look more into the goaltending situation. First, back to Dave Hodge and the reporters.
Thank you, James. We thought we should get off the big three, Parise, Suter, and Brodeur, and you can play along at home as we ask you if they're gone, and you can have the next player, whoever he may be, he's coming to you. All you got to do is make a decent offer. Dave, who are you picking?
Well, I know so we promote something about Jaromir Jagr, so I'll go there. I mean, this is, I think on July 1st, there's a lot of players whose stock is soaring, and I think a lot of times mistakes are made on players whose stock are soaring. Jaromir Jagr's stock is stable, shall we say. He had a good year in Philadelphia. All things went well on both sides. There's not a long-term risk here. He was 3.3 last year. I think Jaromir Jagr still got some value, and he could go back to Philadelphia, but there's a guy that can contribute, and he did kind of maybe run out of gas towards the end of the season, but he's still got a lot to offer.
Michael, your pick.
Well, I think Jason Garrison would be my guy. Pierre Maguire said this is a power play league. This is a power play defenseman. He had 16 goals, third among defensemen in the league. 9 of those came on the power play. Yes, he played with Brian Campbell, and that's your one caveat. It's kind of the Francois Beauchemin, Mike Komisarek deal. If you play with a really good partner, that ups your value. But Garrison is a developing player, a late bloomer, and when you see the kind of money thrown at Dennis Weidman, why not throw it at Jason Garrison?
You know, I was watching P.A. Parenteau a lot this year, and the more you watch him, the more you appreciate the skills this guy brings. Now, I know it's the New York Islanders.
You were watching an Islander game?
He got a lot of ice time, and he played some with Tavares. But if you look at his numbers, everyone's going nuts. Zach Parise this, Zach Parise that. Zach Parise had 72 points. Parenteau had 70 in 2 fewer games. I'm not saying they're anywhere close to the same guy, but a forward, a centerman that dishes the puck and can produce 70 points has value anywhere in the NHL.
Is there a chance that Jagr, Garrison, and Parenteau will all be overpaid today, and that's the reason why maybe you shouldn't pick him in a position like this? Next available best free agent after Parise, Suter. And not to say that they won't be overpaid, but is there a danger that all of these guys can be too popular?
I think the guys who get overpaid are kind of like the Parenteau guys, the guys who've sort of flown below the radar and have this impeccable timing as it comes up to free agency. And because there's so few players that go to market, so few elite players, that next tier down of guys, those are the guys who get overpaid. I don't think the Jaromir Jagrs are the guys who have their best years in the bank are the guys who traditionally get overpaid on this day.
Jagr can't be overpaid because he actually sells tickets, and that's the great thing that we forget in this market. Other than Zach Parise, Martin Brodeur, and Jaromir Jagr, is there one player out there, including Suter, that anyone would actually pay to see?
No, not Jason Garrison.
Yeah.
Not Jason Garrison.
You're not going to overpay Jagr because you know what he is at this stage. You know what you're getting, essentially. You know salary-wise where that fits.
And there's no risk either on the term or the value of the contract, right?
With guys like Parenteau, Garrison, Calgary did it with Weidman. We saw it last year with Tim Connolly in Toronto. You put a guy in a position that's maybe beyond what they're capable of, and you pay them too much to do it because you're fighting against other people to sign him. So all those kind of players will be overpaid because of what comes out of today. What will be interesting to monitor is which guys bring value at all to their team. Never mind ticket sales, value on the ice compared to no value at all.
Well, if Parenteau's a great deal, I don't know how the Islanders, defend the fact that he's not re-signed there, but we'll see. I would want, if I'm a team that has never won a Stanley Cup, I would want Ruslan Fedotenko or Dustin Penner. Actually, I just want their Stanley Cup rings so I could stand up in the dressing room and say, this is what it's all about. Today, it's all about the contract, and back to James.
All right, thank you. And at some point, it will be all about the goaltenders. Hasn't really been so far besides Clemenson and Gustavsson signing. Here's Jamie McLennan, who monitors our goaltending for us in post-to-post. Let's look at the major goaltending stories that we have developing over today and into free agency. And it starts with who signs Martin Brodeur.
Well, really, when it comes down to it, Marty Brodeur is testing the waters, and he's got that right to do that because he's unrestricted. Now, Chicago Blackhawks seem to be a really nice fit for Marty Brodeur because they need an upgrade in net, but there's no reason being that he can't go back to New Jersey if he doesn't see a fit. The Toronto Maple Leafs may be out there throwing their hat in the ring with them, but it doesn't mean that he wants to go there. He's trying to win. He's only got a couple years left, so why not go where you have the best opportunity?
Luongo?
Yeah, this is obviously, this is going to be a domino effect. When you've got Roberto Luongo traded, obviously Vancouver, when they move, they need a goaltender back. They are not comfortable starting the season with Corey Schneider and Eddie Lack. You can't sell that to the fan base saying, listen, we're going to try and win a Stanley Cup with a starting goaltender that is just getting his legs going in Vancouver and an unproven backup. So I think that's where the domino effect is going to be.
So if they make that deal, Vancouver and Florida, again, Jose Theodore, that would be a likely piece going back. It would make sense on both sides, right?
A veteran guy to help Corey Schneider along if he does falter. There's no doubt in my mind that he's going to be a terrific starter, but why not have a veteran guy to play with Schneider?
You were talking about Hedberg earlier. The Devils down there having to sign 2 goaltenders right now, and you wonder somehow if there's a domino effect there on Zach Parise, who's saying, hey, am I going to go back there? Marty Brodeur's not back there if they have no goalie signed with not many big names out there?
Yeah, Hedberg's he's an interesting name. I've talked about him maybe, going to a team like Nashville and spelling Pekka Rinne, but Hedberg has the ability to give the #1 minutes, even though he's 39 years old, but very revered in the dressing room, plays back-to-back games, can do it all, really. So I think New Jersey would still like to keep him in the mix, but again, it depends on if Marty goes back. They're pretty much joined at the hip sometimes.
Yeah, so dominoes, we'll see which one falls first. Is it Brodeur signing or is it Luongo traded? That's Jamie McLennan and Post to Post as the free agent frenzy continues here on TSN 2.
Garrison, the big blast, and he scores! Drops it off Garrison's blast, he scores! Jason Garrison with a rocket!
They score! Ripped into the net by Garrison.
First feed to Garrison, scores! He can fire it.
Boom, boom, Garrison, one of the more intriguing and attractive defensemen on the unrestricted free agent market. I'll talk about him in just a second. First, a little bit of news. Tanner Glass leaves Winnipeg, signs a deal with the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Because Aaron Ashram's going to go to the New York Rangers. That opens up a protector spot in Pittsburgh for a guy like Tanner Glass. But the other caveat to this is Ben Lovejoy. He's been with the Pittsburgh Penguins organization for a while now, played 4 years at Dartmouth with Tanner Glass. So there's a familiarity there. Jay Heinbuch, Randy Sexton, the scouts of the Pittsburgh Penguins, spent a lot of time watching Ben Lovejoy, so now they had a good feel for Tanner Glass and what he's all about.
Tanner Glass after having the good year in Vancouver and the great year last year with Winnipeg Jets.
We talked about risk. Here's a little bit more of Tanner Glass again, who
he brings stump. This guy can definitely put you through. He's a definite physical player. He can score some goals, but it's about more than anything else. I think he's going to go in there to fill a role.
He had a real good fit with on the GST line last year in Winnipeg. They were very effective.
Yeah, I agree.
We saw Garrison off the top, who, again, to me is one of the more intriguing names. Like Semin, there's risk-reward involved in Garrison. Look at the year he had last year as in comparison to the rest of the year. So he's either a one-hit wonder or this was a breakout season and a trajectory upwards. 0 goals, 2 goals, 5 goals, 16 goals, most of them with that boomer on the power play, and 33 points, and likely to get a big payday. So what's your interpretation? Is it a one-year wonder or a guy who's projecting straight upwards?
I think he's trajecting upwards. Now, whether he's going to make another big jump like he did this year, I don't think that's the case. But I think his numbers are closer to the big number than to the one the year before where he was 5-13 for, what, 18 or 19 points. This guy can play. You know, he's got that big shot from the point. Yes, that's his most distinguishable quality. But he reads the play pretty good. His conditioning has improved every year, and that's why you get better. You get a little bit more professional, and I believe that's what's happened with Jason Garrison.
Yeah, the question becomes, do you take a $25 million bet on that?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I know that's what free agency seems to be about, but if you look at the year that Garrison had, the 16 goals, only 3 of them came after the middle of February.
Finish the sentence. Sorry, buddy. I just want, we have another signing. I want to get quickly to Gord Miller.
Are you touching people now to tell them it's time to go?
You know what I think of that?
Yeah.
That's disturbing. I was on the road with Ray all year, never touched him.
Not happened.
Pierre, signing in Florida. Now, remember last year, Dale Talon went on one of the great acquisition sprees from the draft through free agency, acquired 9 players in 7 days. What do we got now?
Philip Kuba, 2 years, $8 million in Florida. We know Jason Garrison has essentially left the Florida Panthers, exploring the UFA market. So there's his replacement, Philip Kuba, leaving Ottawa for the Florida Panthers.
Now, we all know that times are tough and everyone's tightening their belts, except some teams, Darren.
Well, and some teams includes the Carolina Hurricanes. You don't think of the Carolina Hurricanes as being a big spending team. Yes, they just signed Jordan Staal to a 10-year, $60 million deal. But Jim Rutherford and the Hurricanes are just nibbling around the edges of Zach Parise and Ryan Suter. They fully believe that they can sign both of those players. May not be, you know, what some are speculating on a big front-loaded deal, but Carolina most definitely can push the boundaries of its finances to sign both those players, and if it doesn't work out, then they'll make whatever deal they can or try to in Rick Nash.
And now that Matt Carkner has left the Ottawa Senators to go to the New York Islanders, a 3-year deal for $4.5 million, and Philip Kuba has gone to the Florida Panthers for an $8 million deal over 2 years, you can bet that the Ottawa Senators are going to be looking for defensemen more likely in trade than free agency.
All right, and the other thing to keep in mind over the next couple of days is we're not just talking about unrestricted free agents. Restricted free agents are eligible to receive offer sheets. And, of course, a guy like Shea Weber is out there. I mean, he's a year away from unrestricted free agency. The question for Weber is this. If he signs an offer sheet on a long-term contract and Nashville matches it...
Does he want to stay?
Does he want to stay? So if Weber does want to move, he might not want to sign an offer sheet.
Well, Nashville has vowed, they've told the representatives, Titan Sports, that they will match any offer sheet that comes to Shea Weber.
But I just find it hard, if Suter leaves, and we think he probably will, I find it hard to believe that Shea Weber would sign a long-term extension in Nashville. I think that's the decision.
Well, exactly, and that's why he probably wouldn't sign an offer sheet.
Yeah, so he's a restricted free agent. So some of those, we've seen offer sheets in recent years, but those could be lurking out there for the next couple of days. Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, he doesn't like that. I want to clarify, though, on Ray, you can pat Ray on the back. It's the neck that really drives him crazy.
No.
And I interrupted you talking about Garrison.
Again.
Yeah. And the Kuba thing falls right into it.
So now Garrison's gone. I mean, obviously, if they've committed to the 2 years to Kuba, who I think, as you were talking about Garrison playing towards, you think he's closer to what he had last year than previously. I think Kuba is what he was last year, not a couple of years ago. But I look at Garrison, and 3 of his goals came after mid-February. Teams start playing tighter to him. Everybody scouts the game. They can see the guy shoots a bowling ball from the point. So do you want to bet $20 million, as I said earlier, that he's going to improve? Well, they feel Kuba can be at least part of the replacement for what Garrison brought them.
A lot of moving parts in this one. First of all, Kuba was drafted by the Florida Panthers in 1995, so he's going back to where he started his career. That's number one. Number two, there's going to be that void to fill because Garrison's gone. Number three, everybody's making this big thing about Justin Schultz coming out of Wisconsin and signing as an unrestricted free agent after exploring this loophole in collective bargaining. Here's the deal. Jason Garrison was the same kind of thing. He was never drafted out of Minnesota Duluth. There was a bunch of teams, a potpourri of teams that wanted to sign this player out of Minnesota Duluth. Trust me on that. And the Pittsburgh Penguins were one of them. They were really close to getting him. The one thing that put Florida over the top is that they promised him he would play right away in Florida. So we talk about it's amazing how everything changed a little bit in terms of how people evaluate it. Justin Schultz is this big superhero. Jason Garrison a few years ago was in the same position as Justin Schultz. I'm just telling you, this guy, I'd put a lot of money on Jason Garrison. I'm with Mark Crawford. He's a darn good player.
$25 million?
I would.
Because
how much
that's
do you
what
think
you have to do.
Exactly. How much is it going to cost you to keep Schultz in Edmonton?
Well, that's a few years.
What do you mean? That's a couple of years from now.
That's what
He's going to get more than
he's
going to get more than $5 million a year, though, isn't he, though, Garrison?
Oh, yeah.
Kuba's
yeah,
two,
for sure.
2 times 4.
As soon as
you
got a bunch of teams in on it, then they're just moving the offers from one team to the other, and that's where the money just keeps going up and up and
It's
up.
funny. Usually you win the Stanley Cup, and then you get players leaving because of big contracts. Ottawa, I guess the level's gone down. Ottawa just made the playoffs last year, and they have a bunch of guys, it seems
First
like
thing
today.
is make the playoffs.
And a bunch of guys leaving for
it's either make the playoffs
today.
or be on the panel.
A lesson you learned all too well, my friend. We continue on the Free Agent Frenzy.
Olli has become more of a complete hockey player. Jokinen was in alone. He buries it. Olli Jokinen, a power play marker, and he continues to be red hot.
NHL on TSN Free Agent Frenzy is brought to you by Coors Light, proud sponsor of the NHL.
Ray's watching the soccer game in the background. Ray, we're still doing the frenzy.
Okay, sorry.
You have to be quiet when you're cheering on your Italians. We are winding down here. We have about 5 minutes left here on TSN2. We're not going anywhere. We'll be here throughout the day. We'll have updates on tsn.ca, on all of our Twitter feeds, on all the editions of SportsCenter, and then a special 1/2 hour from 7 o'clock to 7:30 Eastern time to recap everything that's happened in the hours that you've been watching soccer or out enjoying your Canada Day. First, let's check in with Gordon Miller and the Breakers one more time.
Sure. Sorry, what's that? Oh, sorry. I was watching the soccer game. Let's sort of get a sense of where we are now and where it's going for the rest of the day, Pierre.
Well, certainly the teams that we've confirmed that have done the old double whammy, both on Suter and Parise, Detroit, Philadelphia, Minnesota, and Pittsburgh. Now, a lot of people telling me Pittsburgh really confident they might get Zach Parise. They think that's going to be a good fit. Here's the thing for Detroit. If they don't get Parise, I think they hone in on Alexander Semin. I think they feel that's a good plan B, and I think the Semin camp is waiting for that to happen.
Right.
Well, and then you have to bring the Rick Nash equation into the mix as well for Detroit. Look at some of the other teams that have or will continue to express considerable interest in him. And that's a process that, we're all waiting to unfold all the way along through the draft anyway. Scott Housen of the Blue Jackets kept saying, well, we got to wait till July 1st, 2nd, 3rd, whenever Zach Parise signs to see if the market changes. The New York Rangers are still widely believed to be the top contender for Rick Nash. There are multiple scenarios, trade scenarios that are in play between Columbus and the New York Rangers. Columbus just has to bite on one of them, and Carolina would be in that mix too.
Well, exactly, and you can see where that one's heading, and not a place where Rick Nash necessarily wants it to head. Very simply, there are a lot of teams right now that are not on Rick Nash's list that are expressing the most interest and maybe the best offers to Columbus. At some point, Columbus is going to look at what they've got from the Rangers and Philly and San Jose and the places that he wants to go, and then they're going to see Ottawa, Carolina, and a bunch of other places and have to go back to Rick Nash and say, would you consider it? And the answer is probably no, and that's when it starts to get a little bit dicey. We'll also keep an eye on Roberto Luongo for the rest of the day. Things are percolating in Vancouver. That's not to suggest that it's imminent, but the dialogue continues with the Florida Panthers.
And one general manager told me today that he heard that there's an offer on the table for Ryan Suter, 13 years, the neighborhood of $100 million, 12 to sign this year, 12 to sign next year. That's it. James?
Yeah, I think the crazy thing is I don't even raise my eyebrows at those numbers anymore, considering what we've seen over the last few years, and I expect he'll get something along those lines. What are you guys looking forward to as the day progresses? What are you most interested in?
I think the Pittsburgh Penguins are making significant progress on Zach Parise. It wouldn't surprise me at all to see Parise and Crosby playing together in Pittsburgh.
Wow.
For me, I think the most intriguing thing is if Luongo goes to Toronto. I think in this market, if they get their goalie, that is the significant step that they need to make.
And if they don't, how much trouble are they in?
They're like, it's like the dominoes falling. You said, like, they're going to end up probably looking at Theodore or somebody like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to me, it's the other end of that trade is Vancouver and what they go ahead and do. There is the equation of Luongo, but also do they make a push for Garrison? They'd like to have another defenseman there.
All right, so we are at the numbers so far. We are at 27 players, and by our total, over $60 million. we always try to do winners and losers. It's way too early in free agency to do that. But of the moves you've seen, so what have you really liked of the moves you've seen so far by any particular teams?
I like the best 40-year-old signing Ray Whitney with Dallas because I think he does add to that group of scorers, Ben, Erickson, and Ryder.
I'm kind of surprised nobody else gave him the second year besides the Dallas Stars in this day and age when you're so desperate for scoring, right?
Absolutely.
I agree. I think that's a good point.
But it sticks on your contract, whether or sticks on your cap, right? As a past 35 deal.
True enough.
So I could see teams being a little timid with it, but Whit sure didn't seem shy with it.
No, he seemed okay.
Under the radar, the New York Islanders, Brad Boyce, maybe he can get back a little bit of his offensive mojo. Matt Carkner going in there, and you think about the young defenders they have, I think that was a pretty good acquisition for the Islanders.
All right, here's what's ahead on TSN and TSN2 for the rest of the day. Again, we'll be in studio. We'll do panels for you on tsn.ca if something major breaks, and follow all of our Twitter feeds to let you know what's happening. PGA Tour, Tiger right now in a 5-way tie for first at the AT&T National final round. So if you're a PGA Tour fan, that is coming up next. Free Agent Frenzy again, 7 o'clock Eastern. Over on TSN, you heard Ray yelling moments ago for his Italians. It's Spain versus Italy. They're still in the first half of play. Then SportsCenter with Brian Mudryk and us as well. And then the Als and Stamps with the Canada Day kickoff at 7 o'clock Eastern on the CFL. So 27 signings, 61 million, many more millions to go over the next few days as the free agency period has just begun. Thanks for watching The Frenzy here on TSN, Canada's sports leader.